Welcome to Silver's Connection. I am your host, Ernie Silvers. Today I have with me someone I've been waiting forever to get on the program. She would have been on the program last year, except your host let his schedule go sideways. Full responsibility disclosure here, folks. So let me introduce to you Johanna Smith. Johanna is a professor at Cal State University teaching theater arts. She has her master's in fine arts from Arizona State University. Her specialties include theater education, puppetry, which is amazing, and improvisation. So Johanna, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Ernie. I'm
Absolutely fun to have you. Like I said, I've been waiting to get you on the show. And so here we are. So
yeah, we just keep joking in faculty meetings, and that's we have to get down to the.
We're doing this improv off camera. Anyway, so we have to start recording something so that the good stuff doesn't get left on the cutting room floor or never makes it to the cutting room floor. So quickly, Johanna, what is improv?
Improv, in the simplest definition, is acting without a script. It's acting without a plan.
Kind of like the show.
Yeah.
It's like the show. No plan, no script.
But it's so funny because people can refer to lots of different things. Like you can be watching a movie and there could be a scene like in Pretty Woman. There's the famous scene where Julia Roberts like reacts to. Do you remember that scene? Richard Gere like has a little jewelry box and he snaps it shut.
Right.
And there's this, and that was improvised. And so her reaction is just this glorious laughter. And the director was like, "Oh my God, I love that so much. That's it." So that's improv, right? But then there's this whole other category of improv, which I love dearly, which is it's an art into itself, which is this whole thing called improvisation, for performance, for live performance. So it's been around a long time, and I'm considered one of the old timers in it. So
hard to believe that
very funny, yeah.
Johanna and old timer would go in the same
old
sentence.
Timer,
but
yes.
Old timer. Okay, well, let's talk about a couple of things because I'm interested in. One of your specialties is theater education, and help us understand, what is that exactly? Theater education, is that like a movie guide?
Believe it or not, there are entire fields out there that nobody has any idea exist. And I think of theater education as one big one. Just to give you an idea, like I started doing children's theater in schools and in a zoo. Of all places, I started doing children's theater at a zoo and in museums and stuff like that. And I started realizing that these performances for sort of families and these big groups of people were just super fun. And that's what got me interested. So I went and pursued a degree in essentially children's theater. So it's people who are interested in children and how they develop, but also like how artistically stuff for kids can work differently than stuff for adults, but at the same time be super high quality. So I got into it that way, and I still absolutely love directing children's theater. I love directing puppetry. I love doing all that stuff. And the last time I toured a show, I have Cal State students be the actors, right? So we go around to all the elementary schools, and one of my favorite thing a kid said, he looked right at me, he looked at me and looked me right in the eyes, and he said, "I'm gonna go to Cal State." Like that.
Recruit them out young and early, I always say.
Yeah. So if you think about it, like, I don't know if you remember, but I remember artistic moments from when I was in elementary school. Yeah. I remember guests coming. I remember seeing a Bunraku puppet and being amazed. This stuff matters. And so there's a whole group of people like me that are actually paying attention to it and trying to get it back into the schools and the classrooms.
I think what's amazing is teaching adult students that, when you were 5, you were wildly creative and imaginative. Yes. And now that you're 25 or 35, you're boring.
I think we had this whole conversation earlier, but I tell my students that all the time. I'm like, society and the world has beaten all of the spontaneity out of you.
You will grow up. You will behave.
And I will peel the layers of oppression off of you to release that 4-year-old, because that 4-year-old is awesome. And we're trying to get back to that freedom, like that, just the confidence and the freedom and just not caring if you sound silly and loving the silly. That's what I love about kids.
So it's it never leaves us. And again, let's work on that just a little bit. The creativity that we have, and then as we grow up, we're told, act like an adult, behave yourself, grow up. It's like, oh my God, they're killing me. That never really goes away. It just gets pushed down. Is that fair?
I think that societally speaking, this is me getting all philosophical, but the American culture does not value true play. Like we value entertainment, being
Oh,
entertained, like watching a movie or seeing something, like being a passive recipient.
right,
But my favorite thing is, like, you ever watch a kid like pick up a stick and play for 3 hours?
right, right.
That is where, as an educator anyway, that's where the interesting stuff happens. And I remember as a kid going out and playing kick the can with the neighborhood kids like all
Mhm.
night long. And those are some of my most wonderful memories. But also, it's where I learned how to get along with people. Right. So it's like there's no adult there telling you how to behave. You have to figure it out. Right. So within this game or within this playing, all of this education happens. And I can get really wonky for you, but if you look at the research that I'm interested in, animals play. And if you look at animals
I've seen
playing,
that. Yes.
yeah, and if you think about it, people play, animals play. It's an instinct, and the reason we have it is to learn. It's to get us out exploring and to get us. It's a wonderful sort of jump start to
Yeah.
learning about the world you're in. So play.
I,
That's
I think an interesting question. I saw this the other day. It was a simple question. When's the last time you had fun?
yeah.
What? What?
Go
That's
bowling.
not
Go
the
do
F
something.
word I use. What?
Yeah.
What? So, when's the last time you had fun? When's the last time? What do you play at?
Yeah.
And as adults, we're so busy being busy.
Yeah.
We don't have time to
Exactly.
play. We don't have fun. Well, my work is my passion. No, I think you're addicted. I'm not sure. So, when's the last time you had fun?
Yeah.
And improv, it's sort of like a game. It's play, right? You
It
have
is
fun,
games.
you
It's
release.
1,000% games. It is exactly. In fact, Viola Spolin, who was sort of the first and best person to write down all this stuff, she worked for the Second City in Chicago. And if
Mhm.
anyone's interested, look up the Second City, Chicago. It's where so many famous comedians were trained. And she was the main trainer. She was the main teacher. So, of course, as a teacher, I'm interested in her. I'm also interested in that she could have been working with like Dan Aykroyd and Gilda Radner and all these super famous people, but she got really interested in working with kids. They would have kids come to the theater and come and
Okay.
take her classes. Yeah. And so most of her work is written down as an educator. So, of course, I love it. But she started to notice what happens during games. So when you're in a game, like especially I'm doing this because this gesture, I'm doing a circle gesture with my hands. And I'm doing that because so many improv games take place in a circle. And one of the biggest components of an improv game is there is a set of rules, like something everyone's focused on. Like we have to all pass a clap around the circle. We have to clap at the exact same time and make it go all the way around, like something like that.
Mhm.
What's fun about it, if you think about how it works, there's no leader really. I mean, there's a facilitator. Spolin calls it like a coach. So
Okay.
there's not like not a teacher saying, we will do this and you will do that. It's more, here's the goal we're all going to focus on, and we're going to see if it works or not. And the leader has to do it too, right? So immediately she's taking away like the traditional hierarchy of education. Nobody's worried about like pleasing the teacher. Everyone's just more focused on the game.
Right.
And then, yeah, and if you're doing your job right, the game will teach everyone what needs to happen, right? The best improvisation teachers trust the improvisation, right? They're not in it for their personality. They're not in it to get anywhere. They're in it to honestly trust how this process works. And it always works. It always works. And you've done something right, like that game I just explained about
Mhm.
clapping and stuff. You've done a really great session if the whole room is in hysterics laughing. But then if you talk to them afterwards, like, why are you laughing so hard? And the answers are like, we clapped at the same time, and then this person didn't clap, and then it was really funny. It's like you can't describe at all why it was so great.
I
But
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah. You just have this belly laugh going on. You feel wonderful and you don't know.
Yeah, or well, you do know, but you can't explain it, so it's sort of, yeah, it's just it's tapping into that play. I'm just trying to think of a game. Have you ever watched kids do the same thing, like just fall into hysterics over just something silly that happened? And that's what improv is. It's a good day when after an improv class when nobody can explain why they're in such a good mood. Yeah,
You just can't put words to it. If you didn't experience it, I can't explain it to you.
right. Can't explain
So
it.
improv, I've watched some of the exercises in your class. I was amused. I was, sort of, I don't know, embarrassed isn't a good word, but I'm thinking you feel empathy for the people who are up there doing their very best and screwing it up wildly.
Yes.
But that's okay, and that's part of it. And I think what I've noticed, and I don't know anything about improv, that's why you're here.
Hey,
But I noticed that improv is sort of teaching you to be okay with little mistakes. Be
failure
okay.
is your
It,
friend.
it's okay if you don't get it right. It doesn't really matter. Just get back up and do it
Do it
again and do
again.
it again.
There are a million ideas out there. This one didn't work. Okay, another one's out there in the ether. Just grab it. We'll keep going. Resilience and willingness to fail are two of the biggest things that students tell me is a result of learning improv. And also a big part of that is trusting other people. It's like, so if you're watching a game and someone screws up, chances are there's a bunch of other people there that will jump in and fix it, or jump in and distract from it, or they're a big cargo net ready to catch. You
It
know what I
always
mean?
works out. Yeah.
Always, yeah. And if nothing else, you'll just move on to something else. And I'm afraid shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway have done one disservice. I love those that show, the
Okay.
improv show.
What's wrong?
It's edited.
Spoiler alert.
Edited. so
No, it's
so
supposed to be rolling. It's improv. Don't blow it for us.
So you get this false sense of how perfect every scene is all the time. And granted, if you're with Wayne Brady improvising, it's going to be really good. He's an amazing improviser. But every now and then, these super amazing improvisers just don't quite hit it right, or whatever. It just doesn't quite work. But in that situation, they edit it out. So in a true improv fashion, you're going to fail so much that you learn to fail with charm. So the audience starts to love you if you're like, I screwed up, yay, and jazz hands, get back up and just do something else, and they'll always be on your side.
So why are we teaching? Now, I already have my own opinion on this, but I'm asking you because you're the expert. Why you also teach improv, the improvisational mind in the School of Entrepreneurship
I do.
to business students, entrepreneurs. Why? Why would we teach that? What's the deal?
I'm going to read you a quote because I am an academic. So
I thought you were a performer. I didn't think that academic.
I am actually. I do perform improv when it's not
a performing academic. I see.
I performing academic when it's not a pandemic. See, okay. Improv, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I'm looking at this book. It's a British book by Max Dickens. Improvise with an exclamation point. But I like one thing. Well, I like a lot of things about this book. And I love this explanation of why on earth an entrepreneur student or entrepreneurship student would want to do this. Improv teaches you that although you can't follow a plan for every scenario, you can be equipped for every scenario. Improvisation training, therefore, is preparing to be unprepared, which I absolutely love. Preparing to be unprepared. So, and being okay with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I've a couple of things come to mind. There's a couple of phrases that even the best battle plan is worthless after the first shot is fired.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Mike Tyson allegedly said everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face.
That's actually really great.
Right? But I think the point is that you need to plan. You need to have a general understanding of what do I think I want to do, but realize and be okay with it's probably not going to happen like that.
But also, there's a huge factor that I think only improv does really well in terms of a training method, which is getting you okay with yourself and not so self-conscious that you can't act. It's you practice skills through games that prepare you to remain calm in different situations and rely on your instincts, and your instincts will do the best possible work for you. I have another quote about that kind of stuff. You want a quote?
Yeah.
Quote. Okay.
Read to us.
Read to you off of paper, and then maybe I'll put up a PowerPoint slide with lots of dots.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Okay. Oh, just other topic. As an educator, I can't tell you how many PowerPoints I've watched about how to be an innovative educator. With somebody reading off the
off the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Improv. This is by Bob Kula from Getting to Yes And. He says improvisation is intelligence in concert with instinct, which is so great. Like that primal response is probably going to be the correct one. Have you ever read what is it, Blink? All these wonderful studies are coming out that says your first impulse probably is going to be pretty solid. So improvisation isn't simply a panicky reaction. I love that description. It's a way in which people can actively explore possibilities, synthesize available information, and innovate in response to a challenge in real time. So the art of improvisation is really about making fast decisions and adapting when faced with unanticipated situations.
Right. Right.
But
Just
that's a,
realizing
yeah,
you take your best swing, and if it doesn't work out, then you take another swing, or you just try something different. But it's not, failure isn't fatal,
no.
right? Failure isn't fatal. Okay. So how is it? I encounter this with students as well, teaching small business management communication. Of course, most folks are petrified to speak in public,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Which the only way you get over that fear of speaking in public is speaking in
By speaking
public.
in
So,
public, yeah.
so you have to keep running that play till you get it right.
Yeah.
Why would you imagine that we become so afraid of mistakes?
Uh, Part of what I think is interesting is, especially the public school system is designed to uh, make kids rely on one right answer for testing purposes, right? And if you
Right.
think about it, that's a test like an SAT, for example, is a do or die situation.
Yes.
You have to do well in the SAT, or it affects the whole rest of your life, right? So think of the pressure. I'm remembering the pressure when I took it, and my kid's a teenager and is going through that pressure. So but that's how we assess kids. We keep testing and testing and testing. And the whole way we're doing it causes such panic because it's about pleasing some authority figure up above and getting everything perfectly right. As opposed to other educators like me who think that it's probably more interesting and more indicative of how smart a kid is if we let them explore things they're interested in, if we let them collaborate, if we let them do more complex projects, as opposed to sitting down and filling in bubbles on a test, right? So it's that being able to act in without fear of the imaginary approval master up above, right? So without seeking approval.
Right.
That's a huge part of Viola Spolin's approach to improv, is removing that need for approval. Yeah, and I keep coming back to like functioning in situations where you get one shot. I'm gonna sound like Eminem. You got one shot, like see, improvise.
Nice.
You got one shot though, really, and have you practiced for it? Does that make sense? Because you can practice for that one shot. You can build up your skills almost like they're a muscle, right? You have to keep developing them. So if you're terrified of public speaking, that's why the only answer to getting better at it or more comfortable is public speaking, right? So improv is a way to flex those muscles a little bit without the sort of spotlight and panic of one person being on display like that. It slowly builds you up so that you can start to realize, like, oh, if I mess up, no one cares. If I
No
do something,
judgment.
yeah, and you start to learn as a member of an ensemble, which is another one of my favorite concepts is ensemble. You start to learn, like, I enjoy watching this person do this, even if they mess up. That must mean people enjoy watching me. Does that make sense? So you
Yes.
start to
Yeah.
stop being so obsessed and realize it's not just about me. It's I'm forgetting about this entire group of people watching me, and it's okay to assume the best. They want me to do well, So as soon as it starts to all become clear because you're working not only as a performer but as an audience member. Then those, like I said, those muscles, those skills start to really emerge, and it starts to become easier and easier to get up in front of people.
I like the concept that suggests that fear, if you're feeling fear, that's selfish, because you're feeling fear. Why? Because you're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about your audience, right? Whether you're speaking or performing or whatever, you're not thinking about your audience. You're thinking about yourself. So you feel fear. It means you're not delivering your best goods.
But also you're shutting yourself off from experience, as what Spolin would probably say. You're shutting down. And so all of your sensory tools that you need, like, this is why a really great improviser, you'll see, like, no matter what, there's just no panic. It's like, there's so much out there to pull from, right? A great improviser is like never without ideas, because they'll just turn and look, they'll see something, it'll trigger like some connection with something they remember. I'm looking right now at a foam ball across the room, for example.
I can't see the foam ball.
I know, I got a foam ball across the room. As an improviser, if I'm starting a scene with that, maybe I start off a scene, I look at that and I look at my partner and say, like, you're so malleable. You always just sort of bend and change to whatever situation you're in. I can't stand it anymore. Like, so you can start like, oh, that foam reminded me of this. If I was talking to another person with those qualities, I would assign those qualities to a person. And then it starts a scene, right? It starts a scene about two people and their relationship, right? So when you start to learn to do that as an improv performer, you just get good at it. Like, you just get good at accepting information, processing it extremely quickly, and having an answer. Not maybe the best answer, but an answer.
An answer. You didn't stand there.
Yeah.
Oh.
And not
So,
judging. Yeah.
in the business world, let's take it back to business world, because you're not teaching, at least for the entrepreneurship side, you're not necessarily teaching folks to be performers per se, but you're teaching them how to use these same skills in their career, their job, their business. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a really crucial distinction, because I would prefer teaching improv to like truck drivers and accountants.
I never thought of that one. How does that go over?
Yeah, some of the funniest people I know are the people who are not traditionally seen as performers. Like, so they have a quirky way of seeing the world, and
Right.
when you start meeting enough people through improv, you start to realize that's what's cool, right? People as individuals are wonderful and interesting, and when you're working with just actors, I love my actors, love my theater majors,
Sure.
but a lot of times they're crafted. Does that make sense? Like, I will craft this persona because I think I have to become some other person, which is what they're supposed to do as actors, right?
Okay.
And improv is more about releasing you, becoming more you-like. So it's kind of opposite. So sometimes actors, believe it or not, traditional actors struggle a little bit with improv, which I think is really funny. But of course, everybody can benefit from it, especially performers. Like I mentioned, Julie Roberts, excellent improviser. Some of the best actors that you'll see are quite good at it, and it's a crucial skill for them.
One of the questions I ask, well, not rhetorically, but I ask students is, are you the same person at school as you are at home? Are you the same person at work as you are at home? And many of them will go, oh no. And I say, why not? Why not? Do you not show up? Do you send a surrogate? Who shows up? And why are there such varying personality types that you put on display or become? Why can't you be you?
We call it in theater, we talk about putting on your mask. So,
yeah, putting on your mask. And I agree that we have to behave in a certain way in certain settings. I get all that, but I should still be able to identify you. Right?
Yeah, and well,
not somebody you've become.
Yeah, and I think that's what surprises people about improv. It's like, they're like, oh, you want me to be like Robin Williams, this hilarious person? And I'm like, no, the people I'm most interested in, the ones who rivet my attention, are people telling me about something they're passionate about, and it's true, right? So if you talk about that, that's essentially what a pitch is, right? I mean, a pitch is, I believe in this idea, I can do it, I'm gonna, I am so committed to making this happen, and translating that passion through physicality, through energy, through your expression, through all of that stuff. That's all stuff that can be trained and released. Does that make sense? So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you watch really successful salespeople, it's like they really honestly mean what they're saying the majority of the time, right? So
you can sense it and feel it, and it causes you to want to buy in, want to believe, because they believe it so, and they can cause you to become compelled to believe as well.
Yeah, it's the best when they actually do have the skills to build their dream. So that for also in improv, you can also learn to kind of identify when it's put on. Does that make sense? So you're reading people a little bit more effectively and accurately if you've been practicing in an improv setting.
So are you going to have a different take on fake it till you make it? I mean,
I actually love fake it till you make it.
Okay. All right. So you're a fan of that.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm a huge fan.
The only difference would be you can tell if I'm faking it to make it.
I could probably do that, but there is psychologically a lot to be said for, I talk about this with my students too, which is one of my favorite assignments in the graduate level of the improv class, the entrepreneurial improvisation and creativity class, which is a little bit more advanced. My favorite assignment I've come up with is the expert assignment. And that is, out of nowhere, one day I will call upon a student in the class and they have to pretend to be an expert in whatever I say. So I'll just launch into something like, so I understand that you refinish furniture from the 1700s, and they have to go, yes, yes, I do.
Yes, and
And they have to take on that persona and convince everyone in the classroom that they have that expertise. And it's the greatest when they make stuff up, make up terminology, refer to authority figures like, well, as I learned from my mentor, Dr. Fiegenschloss, like they come up with like the most.
we just developed the storyline.
Yeah, and because what you're actually doing is building that confidence. In theater education, it's called the mantle of the expert, and there's all this research that shows if kids especially feel like they're an expert in something or take on the role of an expert, it actually changes their response. It makes them more capable, which is really funny to me. So so we talk about that a lot. That's a useful theater thing.
Yeah, it's part of that psychology of if you believe you are, then you are. You believe you can, then you can. But if you believe you can't, you're right. Right.
Yeah, if I had listened to myself in my life, I wouldn't be where I am for sure. Because if I had listened to people say you can't make a living being puppeteer.
Okay, so you bring that up, and behind you are several of your furry friends. Let's talk about the puppeteer thing, because you're a puppeteer.
I'm
Is
a
it fair?
puppeteer.
All right. Okay. I almost said a master puppeteer, but I didn't want you to smack me virtually through saying
No. It is actually accurate, but I prefer the term mistress. Thank you, puppet
a
mistress.
mistress puppeteer. Okay, then. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
You have it, the puppet mistress. Excellent.
Talked is the puppet mistress. That sounds like a novel. Is it a spy thriller?
Yes, exactly. So there's someone.
It could be a whole series, The Mistress Puppeteer.
Someone on the internet.
Oh my God. Talk to us about puppets.
Sure. The reason I like puppets so much is a lot of the same reasons I like improv so much, right? It's the effect that they have on people. The effect a beautiful improv moment will have on an audience of an authentic, incredible shared experience of laughter and joy over something unique to that moment, something that cannot be replicated, right? In puppetry, I started working with puppets. I've always loved them, but I started really noticing how they just grab attention from children and even adults like nothing else. It's just this, the moment where a puppet comes on screen or a puppet comes into a show, it's like, who was it? W.C. Fields said I won't work with children or animals.
Yeah.
There's a reason he said that. It's because puppets are in the same category. Like you can't look anywhere else, right? It's just nothing else matters.
Is that the reason he said that? I thought he just had no tolerance for children.
Because they're unpredictable. Well, that's part.
Is that what it is?
And there's no way he could have been in control of the situation. Yeah. So just not. You have to just roll with a kid and roll with a animal of any kind.
I didn't know that. See, you're teaching me all kinds of things I didn't know. I'll never have a child or an animal or a puppet in my classroom ever. Thank you for that.
There you go. But again, I've seen puppet shows now around the world because I've gotten to go to puppet festivals and all this stuff because I used to work for a very famous international puppet theater, and I got to experience that whole life as a touring performer, which was pretty cool. So, but I would be like, holding a big piece of cardboard that had been painted like something in front of me and moving extremely slowly in a group of people, like we would be clouds or something like that. And the effect on the audience was just like mesmerizing, and I'm just back there holding cardboard and I'm like, okay, this is like, this is so cool. And it does something to the imagination, which is extraordinary. So if, for example, like you can do a whole puppet show with very few puppets or even just objects, and people will completely fall for it, believe that they're alive, believe that they have points of view and they have things to say.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Why is that? What's the psychology behind that, Professor?
Well, I have a whole spiel on this, which is it's not in puppetry for me. It's not less is more. Have you ever heard that expression? Less is more.
Right.
The Muppets are less is more. Like they are an abstracted face. They're very simplified, and kids love them because they project all kinds of personalities on whatever that face is. I like even less than that. I like puppets that don't even have eyes, like stuff like that. I'll show you an example in a second, but because that's my friend Gina Pavlova came up with the term "less is enough," and so the idea of what's the minimum, the absolute minimum thing that will create the illusion of life. So I've done entire puppet shows with just tablecloths, for example. Gina was
Seriously?
yeah, she was my director for that. So we would
And
transform.
you said you weren't a magician. I'm starting.
No. Well, we did it for the 24th Street Theater in LA. It was really fun. But she's a Bulgarian puppetry director. She's amazing. But that idea of like she has this work I've seen her do with her students. Like they did an entire show just with pairs of jeans and umbrellas and jump ropes, you know, and they would just transform them into interesting things. But if you think about it from an entrepreneurship perspective, think about the creativity behind that, right? Like think about who's being able to see such potential in an object, right? You know what I mean? And I keep coming back to that's practice, seeing potential in anything.
Mm-hmm.
In improv, it's seeing potential, saying yes to it, right? So that seems to be the holdup for most people. It's so interesting to me. And so both of my preferred art forms kind of address that, which is, let all that go, see what's possible. What can you do, right? Instead of being focused on what you can't. So,
all right. So I have to ask, because it's driving me nuts. Do you do voices too?
I do.
You do voices too.
I do. In fact, there's something out there with me as a hamster or something like that. I said you can see me as a puppet hamster. I think it's on like public access or something.
You're gonna make me go look now. Okay. Because you can't do a puppet without a voice, right? You have to have a voice.
Would you like me to do a voice?
Could you do a voice?
Wind up the monkey.
I thought you'd never ask.
I do voices all the time, Ernie, because it really drives everybody crazy. Because I'm always, I don't know, young or an animal.
So.
I love it. I love it. There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
Gil, it's
Mistress Puppeteer.
Yeah. But it's funny how voices work too, because this is so funny. Like one of the biggest things I work on with students one of the other things theater does or improv training does is it teaches you theater skills, which are the skills of communicating, right?
Right.
And the voice being a huge part of that. One of the biggest problems we have with students now coming to us in the theater department is they don't articulate, they mumble. They're not easy to understand. So a lot of games have been developed in improv to address being able to be heard, right? And one of the funnest things about a character is that improvising as someone else or as a character sometimes helps people in situations where they feel out of control. Like if you put on a persona on the phone, right? Like I'm sure people have done this. If you work in a call center, you kind of have to, which is like, hello, I'm so-and-so and I'm here to talk to you about blah. It's a person who's not you, right? So
right. You're acting or performing in a part that
right
becomes something or someone.
And that's using a mask for good, right? It's using it's being able to conceal yourself and protect yourself, because some of that stuff is really hard.
Yeah.
And cold calling is hard. All this other stuff is hard. So it's a tool. It's a tool for getting just getting going with developing those skills.
Let me get back to something you mentioned it, projecting your voice, enunciating words. Some folks, as students that I've encountered, it's like they have like a lazy voice, and the voice is kind of stuck in their throat. They're not. I'm not quite sure how to explain. How do you get people to?
They don't feel like, this is going to sound so hippy dippy, but it's kind of true. A lot of people don't feel like they deserve to be heard. Like they've been going through this public school system where their voice isn't necessarily valued, or it's controlled in a way, or they're told to pipe down, or they're told to be quiet. And one of the things that just happened that made me realize the importance of theater in the arts is the performance by Amanda Gorman, the youth poet laureate, at the inauguration. Did you see her?
No. No.
You have to look her up. She's incredible. But she's this young lady. She's 22, and she stood up at the inauguration, like millions of people watching the inauguration, and she performed a poem that she wrote, and she performed it. She rocked it. Like she was using gesture and expression and vocal technique and all this other stuff. And only poetry, only the arts could have taught her that, right? But everybody's talking about that moment. Nobody's talking about, Joe Biden with his hand on the Bible or whatever. No, they're talking about the poet,
Poet. The kid stole the show.
The kid shows that she's
Don't
beautiful.
work with kids. And she's not a
Yes.
kid. At 20 years old, you're not really a kid, but the younger person. All right. So quickly, are there exercises or how do we, for those of us who don't feel like we should be heard, how do we practice, or what do you do? Are there games? Are there little things? How do you get it
Lots of
out?
things.
Just give me a couple.
Well, let me give you an assignment. I give some of my
An
students
assignment? I have
assignment.
an assignment.
No, you
Okay.
don't have to actually do it, but people can do this at home. Which
Now,
is,
anybody watching this program or listening to this podcast needs to do this assignment as projected by Professor Smith here.
yes, Professor Smith, yes.
Professor
Dr.
Smith,
That's
the
right.
mistress puppeteer.
Mistress, yes.
I will never be able to not mess with you about, I'm sorry.
It's not messing. It's
all over. It's all over.
I get very, very important people to call me that, and it makes me happy every time. So that's
Well, I'll find someone very important and I'll direct them that way. So anyway, what can we do to get the voice out? How do we get the voice out?
Yes. Okay. I'll do this first and then ask me about status. That's a fun topic.
Status.
Status. If you feel like seeing how hard it is for you to really let go, see if you can do the following. Go out on your front porch or open up your window and declare a manifesto. Okay. Manifestos are wonderful. Shout at the top of your lungs as loud as you can, something you emphatically believe, so something like, I believe COVID-19 sucks, or whatever you're going to say, proclaim it loud, and then examine what happens to you, examine the reaction of people around you. I guarantee someone will just go like that and go on with it.
Too much. What's wrong with you?
But that idea of opening yourself, open that up and let sound come out, like that is, you don't see people do that. And I was trying to think when I was coming up with that assignment, I was like, when would you do that? And it's like, well, if you're shouting something almost like an evangelist, right? Like if you have something to declare. And so come up with something to declare and go declare it. And then see what that does to you. Because I have students who cannot declare, no matter how hard they try. They cannot let that out. And that starts to get, then I have that information. Does that make sense? Like, I got to go back. I got to go back and help this person slowly and get them to the point where they can open all kinds of stuff to get their voice out. Yeah.
When I'm working with students on speech, I tell them to sing in your car, because most people do that anyway. But I mean, no, really freaking sing in your car. Rock it out, get it up there. And then if you want to take it to the next level, make sure that you're looking at the guy next to you while you're singing and keep looking at him and keep singing, right?
I go back and sing to them.
Feel that feeling, right? And know that you can't feel that and be dead, so you are alive.
Yes.
So just people
singing in public is actually one of my biggest fears. So guess what I make myself do occasionally? So that's because it's all about, like, if you keep doing it and you're like, oh, I didn't die. I haven't died yet.
There it is. That's what I do. Yes. You didn't die.
No.
You didn't die. You lived to fight another day, right? I notoriously will walk around and just sing to myself, but people are like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Oh, I love that. I love what I love? One of my favorite things is there's a group called Improv Everywhere, and they arrange these moments where people will all of a sudden start doing a musical number in a public place.
Yes.
And the participants don't even know each other. They just know to go to this place and do this thing at this time. And it's one of my favorite things in the world. You just start to realize, like, I don't know if it's evidence of how much whimsy is missing from people's lives, but like you see this incredible thing happen and people are just like walking by with their briefcases, and as opposed to me, that's the reason for living, like those moments of whimsy and joy and creativity. And like I said, who do we talk about after the inauguration? The poet. Okay. What do we remember?
The young person who brought the kid. Oh, for crying.
Spontaneity and joy and
people don't have that. They're so hung up on behaving in a certain way, living to some imaginary persona. They can't be themselves. That makes me crazy.
Yeah, or they don't trust that themselves is worth knowing, which breaks my heart. It's like it's going to sound like a psychology thing here, but it's actually
right. No, but it is.
It is. We were talking about performance. It is. Yeah. Like I can't talk to my students without saying, stuff like, has anyone ever told you that you have a beautiful voice? And then I always hear, no one listens to me. So it's like, even if it's just pointing it out,
Right? All right, status. I'm asking you about status.
That is one of my favorite things. Also within improv, it's the reason I think I got along so well with the entrepreneurship folks, is that there is a bit of the rebel in the entrepreneur and the improviser, right?
Yeah.
It's this idea of fighting the status quo, obnoxiously believing that the rules perhaps aren't correct and don't apply to you are wonderful. So like this subversion of the expected is something I'm so passionate about. In improv, one way we play with that is by playing with status. So status is like the rank a person has, right? So if you're, the king of everything, you have the highest status. And then a lower status is, a servant or whatever in theater. Yeah, in traditional theater. So if you think to yourself like, oh, Shakespeare used to play with status all the time. It'd be like, oh, here's this peasant who looks exactly like the king. Whoops, they switched places. What? So that's like the plot of like all of his comedies, basically, right? So-and-so switch places with so-and-so. That's playing with the idea that a lower class person is stuck in the role of a high class person and vice versa. So this idea that status is something that humans are so focused on and attentive to, right? Who's the boss, who's in charge, who's up top. And then you start to realize like messing with that is one of the funniest and coolest things you can do, right? So if you think about some of the funniest status games, it's always something like, my favorite example is when George Bush Sr. went to a very fancy dinner in Japan and like threw up on everybody, and so everybody was like, even the president gets grossed out by sushi.
I didn't see that one.
So, but also like, it's funny to see stuff like the child take control over the parent. Like that's switching the expectation, right? And when you start to see that potential, you start to see it in almost anything, which is like, why can't I record a podcast and have it be more popular than the radio? Does that make sense? Like that kind of thinking. Didn't Adam Carolla do that? He was like the first super popular podcaster and made it actually profitable because he got sick of the control that the radio industry put on him. You know what I mean? So it's I love that. It's the renegade stuff.
Yeah.
And being able to see yourself as having that status, having that power, saying like, I am not going to accept the lower status that you're giving me. You know what I mean?
I don't have to. Right. So not settling.
Yeah.
Just deciding, the rules are simply suggestions for other people. They don't apply to me. Right? Let me show you why that's true. So I'm completely, this has been amazing. Unfortunately, mistress of the puppetry, it's always in my head now.
Yes, it's hard.
We have to go. We have to wrap this up. You have been amazing.
Oh,
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
If folks want to get a hold of you because they're just crazy like that, how can they get a hold of you?
If you want to see how you can become someone who gets paid to do improv and puppetry, which is my secret to happiness. I feel like I've pulled one over on life big time. And I see that as success, by the way. That's success. I'm not rich, but boy, am I happy. So if you
rich and happy aren't always the same. So happy's better than rich.
Exactly. If you go to www.professorjohanna.com, I have a website, and you can also contact me through that. And I wrote a book. It's getting pretty good reviews for teachers. It's puppetry in theater and arts education. If anyone has kids, likes being around kids, it's got all kinds of fun stuff.
Or if you happen to be an adult child.
It's
because becoming older isn't an option, but growing up is. Right? So I refuse to grow up, although things seem to be growing older. So I think this has been fun and amazing. Thanks for bringing fun to Silver's Connection and showing us that we can all be fun, maybe even funny. And you said you could teach people to be funny. You can really,
or even to trust that naturally people just are funny. Like I can watch certain people like just drink a glass of milk and I'll be like, oh, that guy and the milk and the guy. See?
My gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we have to talk after the show, but today I have
fucking faculty meetings. It'll be fun.
Yes, exactly. All right. So that wraps it up today for the Silver's Connection. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Johanna, for being an awesome, awesome guest. You have been fun and amusing as well. Drop us a note at mba.csusb.edu. That's mba.csusb.edu. If you have a comment, check us out on the MBA YouTube channel. That's MBA CSUSB YouTube. Until next time, thanks for being here. We will see you again. Bye-bye.